Soviet Jews were subject to subtle anti-Semitism for years. In the mid-'80s, President Gorbachev opened the doors for immigration. Jews left by the tens of thousands. Since that time, and especially between 1992 and 94, 30 to 50,000 Soviet Jews have emigrated to the Bay Area alone. They have been helped by the Jewish community and by their relatives to establish a new life for themselves. Here are the stories and memories of two Soviet emigre families.
Immigration is always a drama of life. Sometimes it's a tragedy, almost always a tragedy, because you have to quit something, you have to leave very much, but at the same time, it's a very rare opportunity which you don't have living in America all your life. I saw in those computer games, you have 5 lives. Left. 1, 2, 3. Wow. I thought. You have 5, maybe 6. It's not over. You have another opportunity. So, I'm sorry about many things I left behind. I'm sorry. But at the same time, I am very glad that I have a lot of things I didn't have there, and I have here.
Boris and Zina Vladimirsky left the Soviet Union in 1991, but their decision was not an easy one. Boris loved his work in the Soviet theater and culture.
Eventually, he got it after years, after 7 years, he got a very high level of position in our city.
Informal position.
Informal. No money, no any, the benefits of it, but informal. Some benefits, yeah. We had free tickets for every theater, new theater.
Yeah. My brother emigrated in 1974, and he lives here in Philadelphia. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't feel that it's necessary for us. I wanted to live in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, to be in my profession, to write, to lecture, to have good apartment. I couldn't do that, but maybe sometimes we would.
We didn't have an apartment, we didn't have money, but we had a hope that eventually it will be changed.
First of all, where did you meet?
Oh,
Tell us the story of how you met.
it's a wonderful story. We got graduated from the same high school.
Ah.
So
From the same class.
from the same class,
You were high school
actually.
sweethearts.
Yeah, no,
No, not at all.
not at all. It was the summer vacation, and we announced that we decided to get married, and we were 19.
Wow.
I was 20 already.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
And then I returned to my graduate school and tried to get my job, my first job in St. Petersburg. Because, I was a theater critic. I was movie critic and theater critic. I could teach drama. And my teachers, very, very good teachers in this university, they wanted me to do that. But I couldn't. Because, in the former Soviet Union, they had such an institution as propiska, which means you cannot live in that city you want to live. I had to return to my native city, to Odessa, and I couldn't obtain. I was born to teach there, to teach in the university.
Even Boris's frustration with the policy known as propiska, which made it difficult for him to accomplish his career goals, was not enough to make him want to leave.
it's not necessary to live in the best place in this world, even if you know that you live not in the worst, but in bad place, like Tevye from Fiddler on the Roof. He lived in Anatevka, and he didn't want to leave it until they force them all, and they force us. It changed, ironically, during times of Perestroika, and everything changed. When, you know, it were changes to the better,
To the better.
and simultaneously a lot of changes that frightened us.
In the mid-'80s, President Gorbachev ushered in a new era of many new individual liberties for Soviet citizens called Perestroika.
It was almost real freedom of speech.
Yes, we eventually got a feeling that, wow, how come everything is being changed and it should be better, but it's getting worse and worse and worse. And
everything is so shaky. And, you know, it was not just freedom for good, it became freedom for evil.
According to the Emigrés, anti-Semitism was alive and well before Perestroika, but it could not be spoken or proclaimed in government policies.
State anti-Semitism, it was the great state secret. Nobody talked about that openly.
Right.
That's right.
But then when they did,
The great
They knew
hypocrisy.
it. Everybody knew it. Okay?
Yes, everybody knew it,
But
but nobody talked about that openly. Jews are equal.
everybody said.
yeah,
It was secret. And in the time of Perestroika, it was broken. You can speak about that openly. Jews are enemies. They made us miserable.
Unspoken anti-Semitism of pre-Perestroika days was enough to make many Jews want to get out of the Soviet Union. The Rubishevsky family had talked about emigrating to the U.S. for nearly 20 years before they finally left in 1988. Vladimir, his wife Galina, and his mother Luba described the barriers they came up against in school and at work.
We knew that, for example, we cannot go to Kiev Polytechnical Institute because they, out of 200 students which they accept every year for any particular department, they have maybe one Jew, maybe two, and that's it. We knew that medical school doesn't accept any Jews at all, period.
Where?
And,
At any school?
okay,
Almost.
I'm talking about almost nowhere.
all over the country.
In Ukraine,
In Ukraine, forget it.
forget.
You could basically go to somewhere far away to, for example, Siberia, to Novosibirsk, which
When I was in college, it was from 75 people was 7 of Jewish, and all 7 people went to straight A. And some teachers start to give us C just because we are Jew, because they couldn't give all Jew red diploma. It's the best diploma.
I want to tell you that I was very happy with my work, with my life. Only what is bad in Russia is that I am Jewish, that Jewish people could not study where they want, could not working where they want, because Jewish people are second sort people, not like Russian people. And this is very, very bad.
I was graduated and I had a diploma. I could work, but they didn't want me to work because they didn't want us to work at all. I mean, I don't know what did they want us to do. We did work, all of us did. And all of us had diplomas, and we were very educated population, part of population. But they tried to make it for us as difficult as possible.
because you were Jews.
Yeah, because we were Jews.
Orthodox Judaism slipped away after a generation of communism, many Jews were eager to assimilate, to gain equality, and to fully participate in communist society. In fact, many of the early revolutionaries were Jewish. Jews often kept rituals to a minimum, but still they encountered obstacles and quotas when applying for schools and jobs, whether they were observant Jews or not.
Two of my grandfathers, they were revolutionaries. One social democrat, another social revolutionist. They were very, very progressive. And they quit with their parents' traditions. So we were not brought up in Jewish traditions. Our parents were completely secular people, completely. They didn't observe any customs and traditions. Just a slight touch of feeling of holiday maybe on Passover. And that's it.
I grew up in my grandfather home, so I learned from them Yiddish. But they kept their religious under table because it wasn't allowed, and they try not to make trouble for their kids and their grandkids. So when my grandfather passed away, we lost this tradition at all, completely. Just completely.
It was big shock for me when one of my neighbor told, "You're a Jew." I told, "No, I'm not a Jew. I'm a Ukrainian. I'm born in Ukrainian. I live in Kiev. I study in daycare in Ukrainian daycare. I knew Ukrainian language. I'm Ukrainian. I'm not a Jew." And it was big shock for me. But my parents started to explain, "You are Jew." And it was hard for them to explain because they did not know how. It wasn't accepted. And we tried to not tell everybody that we are Jew. We tried to skip this part.
We were Jews on the negative basis because they consider us to be Jews and humiliated as Jews and so on.
Finally, each family decided to start their lives over from square one in the United States.
Here, we didn't have anything. We had relatives, and maybe total, I don't know, maybe $200, maybe $300, but that was pretty much it. So relatives helped us to rent apartment, and we received some grants and support from Jewish Family Services.
We went to San Diego because my sister, younger sister, she immigrated 3-4 years earlier. Maybe it was another reason for me to make this decision, because we were missing her very much. And she lived there in San Diego. She lives there now. So we went there with our extended family, my parents, his mother, and our kids all together. And it's a great city. It's a pretty city, and weather and everything is very good, but unfortunately not too many places to work there. So plus, my English was very poor. Not like it's beautiful now, but it was really poor, and I wasn't ready to have a professional job and even any up job. So that was very.
She had clerical position.
That was very difficult for me.
Starting over from the very beginning was really strange. I didn't know rules of the game. I didn't know how to write your resume, and my first place where we were in the United States was Miami Beach, Florida. My aunt who lived there, she was an old lady. She didn't know. She was not in computer business at all. She didn't know anything about that. Nobody told me how to write resume, and we had really no idea. So a friend of mine from here, that guy who Felix Freeman, who was my classmate, and he arranged interview in HP for me. He told me, okay, you need to write who you are, what you are doing, and your experience, etc. So I took a pen and I handwritten whole resume, and I sent it to some employer to see what happens. For some reason, I didn't get any answer. Okay, And that guy, even that guy, he was here for 10 years at that time. He couldn't imagine that I would handwrite all that stuff. And I didn't have any other means to do it, so I mean, I did it. For me, it was obvious that I need to do it that way.
You didn't have a computer at home yet.
Of course not. So, but
typewriter.
it was, yeah, I didn't have typewriter even, either, okay, I didn't have anything.
No money, no car, no license to drive this car, no habits to drive because, well, it wasn't even our dream in Russia
We
to have a
couldn't
car.
afford to dream about the car.
Yeah, exactly. We couldn't afford to even dream, not a car. So, and we had to get all these basic things here to start it from the scratch. And it was a difficult time, but thanks to relatives and Jewish communities which supported us very much, and even my first job came from them, from Jewish Federation of San Diego. They just accepted me for clerical work just because I was a Jew and I needed help, that's it.
Having a car and learning to drive ranks as one of the most fascinating and empowering changes for the emigres.
In United States, it was my dream to have one car that my husband could drive. And I sit next to him and be backseat driver. And now I have this kind of car, and unfortunately I am not backseat, I am front seat.
I told my son, and he told me too, you can drive. You must drive. And I bought a very, very old car, but a good car. I'm independent.
Yeah.
This is very, very good. If I independent, I can sit on my car and drive where I want.
There is another aspect of American life that has surprised the emigres. It's the size of our homes and apartments. Luba remembers when she and her husband and children got to move up from the 6-room flat that they shared with 5 other families.
When I was married and have 2 children, and for the company where works my husband, they gives him a new apartment. In this apartment, 1 bedroom for 4 children, for 4 people. I understand that many people in my age understand it, and it's not comfortable, but it's not bad.
How do you get
It was
privacy?
awful.
What?
How do you get
How do you
privacy?
find private moments with your husband, or when you want to be alone, what do you do?
Я не понял.
Когда ты хочешь быть?
No, we cannot be only with my husband, because we have 2 children.
Basically, generations used to live in the same apartment because apartments were not very available, and young kids could not just go outside to the market and rent them. Okay, so you're supposed to stay in line for 10, 15 years to get an apartment.
Our owners, they had 1 room, and we
Landlord.
had landlord, and we had another room, and we had 1 little kitchen and 1 little bathroom, and there were 2 of them and 2 of us, and we.
You mean you shared the kitchen and bathroom?
Exactly.
It was not
It was
too
very
difficult.
natural.
Yeah, and her father forced me to promise that we would not have kids until we graduate our universities.
Later, Boris and Zina and their 2 young children moved in with Zina's parents. While living in cramped apartments with one's relatives has its downsides, it also resulted in very strong family ties. As a rule, whole families, grandparents included, emigrated together. Now these families struggle to maintain those close ties in our culture.
But it had bad things, of course, because you were very tight and it was very hard to do it. But it had good things as well, because people lived together, and good or bad, you needed to live with your parents and with grandparents, and you knew them better, and you were very close to them. Versus sending once a year Christmas cards or whatever, Hanukkah cards, and once a year phone call for birthday. I mean, for me, it's a little bit too little.
Boris and Zina came with Boris's mother to San Diego. She has since passed away.
It's very valuable thing
Yeah,
to
have
older
population,
generation,
very, very
not
close.
far from the young.
Besides, she made our house sweet and warm, because we spent 8-9 hours outside of the house. She was there. Paul came from home. His grandma is
The home was
empty
not
house.
empty.
And it's important
No,
to have.
he spent 3-4 hours between his school hours and our arriving home or showing
Alone.
up. From 3 o'clock till 7 o'clock, for example. He's alone, home alone.
Yeah.
Some ways I like how they treat their kids, how American people treat their kids. Most of the times they give good ideas to me how I need to be, because in Russia everything no, here everything yes. And where I need to find middle, gold middle.
In the United States, kids have a little bit, from my point of view, a little bit too much freedom. Okay, we are trying to get as close to our old Russian traditional style. I'll tell you why. First thing which I don't like to happen to my family, for example, is being very distant from your kids. In Russia, we were forced to live together for generations. I lived with my grandmother, with my parents, okay, for, I mean, as long as they were alive.
I want.
Tell her. Go ahead and tell her.
Okay. I want you finished school very, very good, and then you will start in the university, and when you will graduate at the university, became a good job, get married, have 3 or 2 children, and will be lucky.
Okay.
I will be lucky and you.
One more thing. Mama, what's your hope for your grandmother?
Hope she lives for a very, very long time, happy as she is.
Thank you.
Boris and Zina are concerned about their children's education in America.
The school doesn't require from him to be as good as possible. If you're doing fine, not bad, that's okay. You're a very good kid. So he knows that he's very, very good kid. And what does this mom want from him?
Because each Jewish kid in the former Soviet Union knew that to be equal, he should be the best.
Why is it important to maintain the ties to language and reading and drama?
I would say the first thing, not to lose connections with his family, with us.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we'll lose him tomorrow.
In the United States, the emigres are free to study and practice Judaism with no fear of repercussions. For Boris and Zina, a spiritual rebirth is not on the agenda, but they see it as a distinct possibility for their youngest son.
I think that religious and observance begins from the first days of your life. Otherwise, it's something artificial and not natural. I can be very sorry that I'm not religious, but it doesn't help. It doesn't help. But our younger, he was studying in Chabad Day School in San Diego, then in Hebrew Day School here a little bit. he had his own bar mitzvah by his free choice here in Palo Alto a year ago, and he had his Jewish classes, and he's very interested.
The Rubashevskys, on the other hand, began to study Judaism in the U.S. and chose a synagogue to attend. They also decided to have a second wedding with Jewish rituals this time.
We like to be part of Jewish family, and we like to keep Jewish tradition, but not so strict. Before wedding day, we had classes basic Judaism, and we study for 9 months, 9 or 10 months, and finally by end of these classes, it was May 31st, we had wedding ceremony. It was like a second marriage for us, but this time with our kids. On first time we didn't have marriage, and very funny was on that day Alex was 6 years old, and he ran around the temple and he laughed and loud on whole temple and thought, "Wow, Rabbi give permission to have another baby."
Do you remember that day? What do you remember about the day?
The main thing that I remember, which gave me a big question, was why did they wrap the glass in a piece of paper and then break it? Why did they even break the glass?
Why didn't he?
That I'm not totally sure, but I was told to break all of the bad things, to put them in the past, and to start fresh.
Even as we get to know and appreciate these newcomers to America, the Soviet Jewish émigrés are also engaged in a process of exploration and appreciation of their own changing identities.
We are Jews there, and we are Russians here. Each American would tell you that we are Russians. Yeah. And, you know, and to some extent, it's true. We are Russians. We are Russian Jews, I would say. Russian Jews, it's some special ethnicity, combination of ethnicity, religion, and destiny. I would say Russian Jews. And if each American Jew, if they had genetic memory, they would understand you. What does it mean to be a Russian Jew? Because most of them, either from Odessa or Kiev, or maybe Salmonatevka, Minsk, Pinsk, Slutsk, I don't know. It's very valuable heritage. We are from Russia. We are Jewish from Russia. And we can contribute to this culture, to this life, a lot. A lot. There are two.